G'day folks, it's the 9th of February 2023, and over the last few days the southeastern Indian Ocean and southwestern Pacific have broken down into a train of tropical cyclones and disturbances. We've got Freddie off to the northwest of Western Australia, and now beyond that, further west, is recently formed Dingani. But the most potentially impactful at the moment seems to be Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle in the Coral Sea and on a path towards Norfolk Island and New Zealand. So let's take a look at it. It's currently centered about 900 kilometers north-northeast of Brisbane, Australia, and moving southeast through the warm Coral Sea. It's a large system that has failed to form a distinct eye despite quite favourable conditions overnight for intensification. The main player in steering and affecting the intensity and structure of the storm in the next 48 hours is this mid to upper level trough moving in off Australia that's going to eventually move right over the cyclone. This affects the vertical wind shear, it affects the tracking of the storm, and it affects the amount of humidity and dry air that's coming in towards the storm. As the trough approaches the storm, a divergent portion ahead of it should allow the outflow from the top of the cyclone to aid intensification, while it's still over warmer waters that are above 26 Celsius. But the amount of intensification will be dependent on whether the core can get its act together and form a half-decent eye. Currently, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center peak Gabrielle's intensity at 80 knots, 1 minute sustained winds within the next 24 hours. And the Bureau of Meteorology bring Gabrielle up to Category 3 on the Australian scale. Before heading to New Zealand, the storm is due to pass over small Norfolk Island. As Gabrielle moves close to Norfolk Island, we're expecting gales with gusts to 120 km an hour to start with on Saturday morning, and then destructive winds with gusts to 140 km an hour on Saturday, potentially persisting into Sunday morning. And with this, there'll be high surf and storm surge, potentially bringing damage to the coastal areas. So Norfolk Island's roughly 2,200 residents should immediately prepare for this dangerous storm by securing boats and property. Use daylight hours before the nightfall on Friday night. A warm eddy is present near Norfolk Island, so temperatures in the ocean are actually about 2 degrees above normal throughout this region. That puts them right on the threshold of the typical tropical cyclone cutoff, which is 26 Celsius. It's actually somewhere up here, but down as we head to Norfolk Island, it gets down to about 25 degrees. During this time, the storm is set to move under the large-scale trough, as well as move over cooler sea surface temperatures. And these factors will cause the storm to begin losing its tropical characteristics and become a subtropical storm with a large and growing wind field as it barrels towards New Zealand's North Island. So it's time to get to New Zealand, where there has already been record rain in Auckland in recent weeks, so there is concern about another storm system approaching, understandably. This is likely to produce a widespread significant weather event as the storm barrels across the northern edge of the North Island. We expect to see the impact from this cyclone beginning on Sunday, starting in the north and spreading to a wider region early next week. From Monday morning to Tuesday morning, we may see rainfall amounts of 150 to 200 millimeters in 24 hours, according to the Met Service. And with midday Monday through midday Tuesday, they're thinking 200 to 300 in the Coromandel area in 24 hours. Here are the rain totals according to the European Centre model over the next 5 days. But if you go to the next 3 days, you can see it's much less. So this is all mostly occurring in the 2 days of the last 5 days. And if we click here, we'll see the values are in that 100 to 200 millimeter range. And the Coromandel over here, oh wow, so the ECMWF in the Coromandel is producing rain accumulations in the mountains of approaching half a meter. I mean, you've got 42 centimeters there, and I just clicked on one random point. Let's check one of the other models. Let's check the GFS. GFS has 25 centimeters, and you can see a redistribution. And this is because they have slightly different tracks, as you'd expect for the storm. What about Access? Well, Access likes to focus the rain on the eastern side of the North Island, and Icon is got that similar to the ECMWF. But you've got really, really high totals occurring in the Coromandel in particular. Widespread heavy rain over the Auckland region, over the northern areas of the ocean and then into the interior a bit. And I think that the rain does stretch down the eastern side of the island in particular as those winds pile in. I put on the wind gusts for the icon model here just to give an idea of the gusts that are occurring in the model. These are not the sustained winds, but the gusts approximately at 3 seconds. So we've got 100 km/h gusts here on 21 UTC on Sunday, and that then, as the low pressure system passes through, you see extremely high gusts on the high mountains, up to 145 km/h over the Ruapeu area, and much lower gusts. But the icon model does want to bring in some very, very strong winds into the Auckland region. And I think it's important to not focus on this particular model, but it is certainly indicating damaging wind gusts coming in as the storm system moves round towards the northeastern corner of the island. The GFS, on the other hand, is not quite as aggressive on the wind gusts. As you can see, it's getting up to about 100 to 120 km/h, coming in as the low pressure moves in towards the east of Auckland, and there's strong wind gusts also coming in on the east side of the island. So we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on this storm in the days ahead. We'll have a better idea as to the precise track. It's all dependent on the track and the precise location, and whether it does do a slight deepening on the final approach to the North Island. And on that note, I'm going to leave it. Please leave a comment if you have a question, and I'll see you in the next one.